There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure.
Buzz Aldrin, one of the pioneering astronauts to walk on the moon, has remained largely silent about the full extent of his experiences during the historic lunar mission. His silence about his time in space and the encounters he had there has long captivated the public's imagination. However, Aldrin's recent disclosures about what he experienced and saw in space have sparked an outcry for more information. What did he truly observe on the lunar surface?
Buzz Aldrin's revelation. Buzz Aldrin was one of the pioneering astronauts who walked on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission. Born Edwin Eugene Aldrin Jr. on January 20, 1930, Buzz Aldrin is renowned for his impressive career as an astronaut, engineer, and fighter pilot. His remarkable accomplishments include performing 3 spacewalks during the Gemini 12 mission in 1966 and serving as the lunar module pilot on Apollo 11, where he became the second person to walk on the moon.
Oxygen is 81%. I have no flags and I'm in minimum flow.
Aldrin excelled academically, graduating third in his class from the United States Military Academy at West Point in 1951 with a degree in mechanical engineering. He then flew jet fighters during the Korean War, completing 66 combat missions and earning recognition for downing 2 MiG-15 aircraft. Aldrin furthered his education at MIT, where he earned a Doctor of Science degree in astronautics, becoming the first astronaut with a doctoral degree. Despite facing initial setbacks due to a lack of test pilot experience, Aldrin's persistence led to his selection for NASA's Astronaut Group 3 in October 1963, after NASA adjusted its requirements. With over 2,500 flying hours to his name, Aldrin surpassed the qualifications and made significant contributions to space exploration. His innovations, such as the Aldrin Cycler, a proposed space route to Mars, highlight his ongoing commitment to advancing space travel. After retiring from NASA in 1972, Aldrin continued to advocate for space exploration and inspire future generations with his visionary ideas and achievements. Aldrin recently shared his incredible experiences about the mysterious far side of the moon from his historic Apollo 11 mission. His insights offer a unique and thrilling perspective on this remote and enigmatic lunar region. Aldrin shared that being a Presbyterian elder, he performed his regular religious ceremony on the moon, becoming the first person to do so in space. After this groundbreaking moment, he and Neil Armstrong geared up for their much-anticipated spacewalk.
Hey, John, this is perfect with the LIM and the rover and you and Stone Mountain.
They planted the lunar flag, conducted a series of scientific experiments, and even had a conversation with President Nixon before wrapping up their activities. During their moonwalk, they set up important scientific instruments like a seismometer and a laser reflector. While Armstrong explored a nearby crater, Aldrin collected samples of lunar soil. They carefully hoisted these samples and film boxes into the lunar module using a pulley system. After securing everything and disposing of unnecessary equipment, they closed the hatch and took a break. They then ascended in the Eagle's ascent stage to rendezvous with Michael Collins.
Mike Collins aboard Columbia is spring-loaded to do what is called a mirror image maneuver,
who was orbiting the moon in the command module, Columbia. After meeting up, they left the ascent stage in lunar orbit and began their journey back to Earth.
Got to realize there's a fundamental truth to our nature.
Aldrin shared that although he didn't land on the far side of the moon, he observed it during their lunar orbit. He described the far side as a magnificent desolation, highlighting its stark and breathtaking beauty. Unlike the near side, which features dark plains, the far side is rugged and covered with impact craters and towering mountains, creating a strikingly different landscape. Additionally, Aldrin also shared that he and Neil Armstrong observed a mysterious illumination moving relative to the stars. Aldrin described it as an unidentified flying object. He recounted seeing structures on the lunar surface that resembled satellite dishes, complete with distinct features like a dish shape and a central spike. Aldrin's claims extend to an intriguing image of what appears to be a bridge or pipe, and even a structure resembling a cooling tower. Such observations, coupled with the historical Brookings Institute study, suggest that extraterrestrial or man-made lunar structures might exist. The idea of alien bases or advanced technologies on the moon provokes significant concern, especially among military and space defense officials who fear potential threats. Additionally, recent NASA photographs, never before aired publicly, show colossal, artificial-looking structures on the moon, adding to the mystery. These images have baffled experts, with some speculating about their origins and purpose. More than 50 years after Apollo 11 landed on the moon, the debate continues. What did the astronauts really encounter, and why did NASA halt further moon missions? Space Race Showdown. Many people believe that the Apollo 11 mission was a direct result of what is known as the space race. After World War II ended, the ideological clash between the US and the Soviet Union, known as the Cold War, began to unfold on multiple fronts, from military conflicts like the Vietnam War to the dangerous race to build nuclear weapons. But one of the most exciting and symbolic battlegrounds was the quest to explore space. The first milestone in this race was to launch an unmanned satellite that could successfully orbit the Earth, a goal both nations were desperate to achieve. In 1954, the United States started planning this ambitious venture, but the Soviet Union stole the spotlight on October 4, 1957, when they stunned the world by launching Sputnik, the first-ever satellite. The Soviets quickly followed up a month later with Sputnik 2, sending a dog named Laika into space, making them the first to send a living creature beyond Earth's atmosphere. This stunning achievement sent shockwaves through the United States, where the public reacted with panic and fear, believing they were falling behind in this crucial new arena of the Cold War. Despite President Eisenhower's initial calm response, viewing Sputnik as merely a transmitter in orbit, the American public saw it as a clear sign of Soviet superiority in the space race. This national anxiety spurred the U.S. to accelerate its space efforts. However, America's first satellite attempt, the Vanguard TV-3, ended in a dramatic failure when it crashed back onto the launch pad in late 1957. This setback led to the successful launch of Explorer 1 on January 31, 1958, offering a much-needed morale boost. In response to these early challenges, the United States decided that the space program needed more structure and focus, leading to the creation of a dedicated space agency. This marked the beginning of NASA, which would eventually lead the country to some of its most iconic victories in the space race. This thrilling era of competition and innovation not only marked a turning point in history, but also laid the groundwork for the incredible space explorations we continue to pursue today. There were many challenges at play during this pivotal time. One of the biggest issues President Eisenhower faced was deciding which branch of the military would take charge of developing a rocket to launch into space. According to historian William Odom, Eisenhower's main problem during this period was figuring out which branch of the military would be responsible for developing a launch vehicle. However, this turned out to be a major headache because it sparked intense rivalry among the military branches. Eisenhower wanted to end this competition and shift the focus of space exploration to a dedicated government agency with a mission centered around peaceful and open communication. NASA officially began its journey on October 1st, 1958, but those early days were nothing like the powerhouse the organization would later become. NASA was like a newborn, still learning to walk and discovering how to tackle the enormous challenges of launching both people and machines into space. As Odom put it, in those early years, especially between 1958 and 1961, NASA was trying to figure out what its overall program would look like. The big questions loomed large. What should NASA's top priorities be? Where should most of its budget go? There was a strong focus on the scientific mysteries the agency was meant to solve. What could satellites do for us in space? It was a bit like the Wild West, with NASA trying to carve out its identity and decide what it wanted to become. The organization was in a state of exciting discovery, laying the groundwork for the monumental achievements that would come later. On April 12, 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin made history as the first human to venture into space. He completed an extraordinary 108-minute flight, orbiting Earth just once. According to New Scientist, this monumental achievement catapulted Gagarin to celebrity status in the Soviet Union. Despite his fame, the Soviet authorities decided not to send him back into space. They feared that if something went wrong, they would lose a valuable symbol of their space achievements, as reported by the BBC. Tragically, Gagarin's life was cut short on March 27, 1968, when he died in a training flight accident. Just a month after Gagarin's groundbreaking journey, on May 5, 1961, the United States made its own space milestone. Navy test pilot Alan Shepard became the second person to travel into space. Unfortunately, due to the design of his capsule's portholes, Shepard was unable to see any stars during his flight, as noted in his flight report. Odom reflects on the impact of Shepard's flight. After Shepard's mission in May 1961, it was clear that the space race was intensifying. President John F. Kennedy then made a bold commitment to the lunar program, which fueled an influx of resources and focus. For the next 7 to 8 years, NASA dedicated its efforts to achieving the monumental goal of landing a man on the moon. Apollo 11 Overview. On July 20, 1969, the Apollo 11 mission marked a historic milestone in space exploration. The Apollo 11 mission was a historic achievement in fulfilling President John F. Kennedy's 1961 goal to land humans on the lunar surface and return them safely to Earth. Launched from Cape Kennedy on July 16th, Apollo 11 carried Commander Neil Armstrong, Command Module Pilot Michael Collins, and Lunar Module Pilot Edwin Buzz Aldrin. After entering Earth orbit, the spacecraft's SIVB stage was reignited to place Apollo 11 on a trajectory to the moon. Following the separation and docking of the Command and Service Module, CSM, with the Lunar Module, LM, the mission proceeded with a series of precise maneuvers to prepare for lunar orbit insertion. On July 20th, Armstrong and Aldrin in the LM Eagle began their descent to the moon's surface. Armstrong's famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind,"
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
were broadcast live to an estimated 650 million viewers as he became the first human to walk on the moon. Aldrin joined him shortly after, and they conducted experiments, gathered samples, and took extensive photographs. The astronauts spent over 21 hours on the lunar surface before re-entering the LM. After a successful ascent, the LM redocked with the CSM, and the spacecraft began its return journey. On July 24th, Apollo 11 splashed down in the Pacific Ocean, ending a mission that not only fulfilled Kennedy's ambitious goal, but also set a new benchmark in space exploration. This groundbreaking achievement was more than just a symbol of national pride. It provided crucial insights into how planets form and change within our solar system. Exploring the moon has also offered valuable information about Earth's history and has the potential to serve as a stepping stone for future space missions. The moon has fascinated humanity for centuries, inspiring a wealth of stories, myths, and artistic creations. Apollo 11's groundbreaking discoveries. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, in a feat of unprecedented achievement, spent just over 2 hours on the lunar surface. During this brief yet historic venture, they collected 12.8 kilograms of rock and regolith, ventured across 1 to 2 kilometers of the surface, and deployed a suite of scientific instruments. These actions, however brief, would forever change our understanding of the moon and the solar system. The lunar landscape was not the dust-choked quagmire envisioned by some scientists, notably Tommy Gold of Cornell University. Gold had theorized that the moon's surface was blanketed in a thick, electrostatically levitated dust that could potentially swallow a spacecraft. However, when Apollo 11's lunar module touched down, the astronauts found the surface much firmer than Gold's predictions. Far from sinking into a mire of gold dust, Armstrong and Aldrin left distinct boot prints that marked their historic journey. This discovery dispelled fears of a treacherous, unstable surface and revealed a regolith composed of fine, powdery fragments, a mix of rock debris, mineral grains, and glassy particles formed by meteorite impacts. The samples returned from Apollo 11 provided a window into the moon's geological history, challenging long-held theories about its formation. Before the mission, the prevailing belief, heavily influenced by Harold Urey, was that the moon had formed in a cold, undifferentiated state. According to this view, lunar rocks should closely resemble primitive chondritic meteorites. However, the rocks brought back from the moon painted a more complex picture. The lunar regolith included a variety of rock types, basalts, breccias, impact spherules, and agglutinates that defied the notion of a static, unchanging moon. These samples revealed high titanium basalts and significant quantities of plagioclase feldspar, suggesting that the moon had experienced substantial volcanic activity. This new evidence pointed to a more dynamic and geologically active past than previously imagined. Beyond the physical samples, Apollo 11's experiments, such as the seismometer for detecting moonquakes and the lunar dust collector, paved the way for future lunar science. The data collected provided critical insights into the moon's seismic activity, the behavior of lunar dust, and the composition of the solar wind. These early experiments set a precedent for future missions and established a foundation for understanding not only the moon, but also the broader dynamics of our solar system. The discovery of rocks rich in plagioclase feldspar on the moon was a real shocker. These rocks, known as anorthosite if they contain over 90% plagioclase, or gabbroic anorthosite if they have 77 to 89 plagioclase, were completely unexpected. They stood out because they were light-colored and very different from the dark lava flows that blanket the surface of Mare Tranquillitatis. John Wood, a scientist with a vivid imagination and bold ideas, figured these rocks didn't originate from the nearby lava flows. Instead, he proposed that they must have been brought there by impacts from the surrounding highlands. Wood speculated that the highlands were made up of anorthosite and similar rocks. He boldly suggested that the entire highland region might be composed of this type of rock. His theory gained support when he noticed that the feldspar-rich rocks from Apollo 11 closely matched the chemical composition of the material ejected from the highland's Tycho crater, as determined by the Surveyor 5 lander's chemical analyzer. Wood's imagination didn't stop there. He estimated that the anorthosite layer on the moon's highlands could be up to 10 kilometers thick. This raised the question, how could so much anorthosite form? On Earth, such thick layers of anorthosite form in large, layered igneous intrusions where magma crystallizes. Wood proposed that the same process happened on the moon. He suggested that plagioclase feldspar accumulated as the moon's magma system, which he called the magma ocean, cooled and crystallized. Buzz Aldrin's life after NASA. After leaving NASA, Aldrin faced a challenging and turbulent period in his life. Despite his hopes of becoming Commandant of Cadets at the United States Air Force Academy, the position went to his West Point classmate Hoyt S. Vandenberg, Jr. Instead, Aldrin was appointed Commandant of the USAF Aerospace Research Pilot School at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Although he lacked managerial and test pilot experience, Aldrin was tasked with overseeing a curriculum that included significant astronaut training. Students at the school flew modified F-104 starfighters to the edge of space, a testament to Aldrin's esteemed role in the astronaut community. However, Aldrin's tenure at Edwards was marred by friction with his superior, Brigadier General Robert M. White, a decorated X-15 pilot. Aldrin's celebrity status often overshadowed White's authority, leading to tensions and criticism. The situation worsened following two crashes, one involving an A-7 Corsair II and a T-33. While there were no fatalities, the destruction of these aircraft was attributed to insufficient supervision, and Aldrin bore the brunt of the blame. The stress of his role took a toll on Aldrin's health. He began experiencing neck and shoulder pains and sought help from the base surgeon. Diagnosed with depression and grappling with the recent suicide of his mother and the historical suicides in his family, Aldrin faced the harsh stigma surrounding mental illness. The potential for social ostracism and career damage added to his burden. In February 1972, Aldrin received disheartening news from General George S. Brown. The USAF Aerospace Research Pilot School would be rebranded as the USAF Test Pilot School, eliminating astronaut training. Faced with a diminishing Air Force interest in space and budget cuts affecting the Apollo program, Aldrin decided to retire as a colonel on March 1, 1972. His retirement ceremony was attended by his father and General Jimmy Doolittle, a family friend. Following his retirement, Aldrin struggled with clinical depression and alcoholism, detailed in his autobiographies, Return to Earth and Magnificent Desolation. His attempts to adjust to civilian life included a brief stint selling used cars, which proved unsuccessful. His battle with alcohol led to periods of hospitalization and eventual arrest for disorderly conduct. A turning point came in October 1978 when Aldrin achieved sobriety, an achievement that marked a new chapter in his life. Aldrin's post-NASA years also included efforts to help others with drinking problems, notably actor William Holden, whose struggles ended tragically in 1981, unveiling the moon's far side. The moon's far side, often shrouded in mystery, stands in stark contrast to the familiar face we see each night. For decades, scientists have puzzled over why the moon's far side is so distinct from its near side, which is visible from Earth. Recent breakthroughs in lunar science have begun to unravel this enigma, offering insights into the moon's geological history and the reasons behind this remarkable asymmetry. Initially, it was believed that the moon's near side and far side were relatively similar in their geological characteristics. However, space missions and robotic observations over the past 60 years have revealed a dramatically different picture. The near side of the moon is notably covered with maria, large, dark plains formed by ancient volcanic activity, while the far side is almost devoid of these features. Specifically, about 31% of the moon's near side is covered by maria, while the far side has only about 1% of its surface occupied by these volcanic plains. To understand why these two sides of the moon are so different, scientists have revisited the giant impact hypothesis. According to this theory, about 4.5 billion years ago, a Mars-sized object collided with the proto-Earth, leading to the formation of both the Earth and the Moon. Earlier theories posited that the Moon, being smaller, cooled and solidified more quickly than Earth, leading to its geological freezing. However, this concept has been challenged by recent findings that indicate relatively recent geological activity on the Moon. Evidence suggests that volcanic and magnetic activity persisted on the Moon as recently as 1 billion years ago. A groundbreaking study conducted by researchers from the Earth Life Science Institute at Tokyo Institute of Technology, the Carnegie Institution for Science, Towson University, NASA Johnson Space Center, and the University of New Mexico provides a fresh perspective on this mystery. This research focuses on the Moon's geologic history and presents a novel explanation for the asymmetry between its near and far sides. The study utilizes experiments, computer modeling, and existing lunar surface observations to investigate the Moon's composition. One key finding is the role of radioactive elements such as potassium, K, thorium, Th, and uranium, U. These elements decay over time, generating heat that can melt surrounding rocks. The research highlights that regions on the Moon's near side possess unusually high concentrations of these radioactive elements, particularly uranium and thorium. This enrichment could explain the enhanced volcanic activity observed there compared to the far side. Matthew Lanaville, a planetary scientist at the Earth Life Science Institute, elaborated on this discovery. Because of the relative lack of erosion processes, the Moon's surface records geological events from the solar system's early history. In particular, regions on the Moon's near side have concentrations of radioactive elements like U and Th, unlike anywhere else on the Moon. Understanding the origin of these local U and TF enrichments can help explain the early stages of the Moon's formation and, as a consequence, conditions on the early Earth. Furthermore, the study highlights another crucial factor: the presence of CREEP, an acronym for potassium K, rare earth elements, REE, and phosphorus, P, which is associated with lunar Maria. CREEP-enriched material on the Moon's surface has a lower melting point compared to other rocks. This property further contributes to the geological differences observed between the near and far sides of the Moon. The combined findings suggest that the CREEP-enriched Maria have played a significant role in shaping the lunar landscape since the Moon's formation. The volcanic activity and surface changes induced by these elements have contributed to the dramatic contrast we see today between the Moon's near and far sides. New frontiers in space exploration. When it comes to Moon exploration, recent missions like India's Chandrayaan-3 have shown that we are only scratching the surface of our lunar adventures. Launched on July 14, 2023, Chandrayaan-3 carried a lunar lander, a rover, and a transport module that moved it from Earth's orbit to the Moon. The mission made a historic achievement by landing near the Moon's south pole on August 23, 2023, marking India as the fourth country to successfully land on the Moon. This accomplishment highlighted India's growing prowess in space technology and its ambition to become a key player in global space exploration. Chandrayaan-3 provided some amazing discoveries. It revealed surprising temperature extremes on the Moon's surface, with temperatures varying up to 70 degrees Celsius, defying earlier predictions. The mission also made an exciting discovery of sulfur near the South Pole, thanks to the advanced laser-induced breakdown spectroscope on the Pragyan rover. In addition to sulfur, the rover detected several other elements, including aluminum, calcium, iron, chromium, titanium, manganese, silicon, and oxygen. ISRO, India's space agency, also shared crucial data about plasma density near the Moon's surface. The mission conducted seismic measurements, capturing vibrations from the rover and detecting what might be a moonquake, similar to an earthquake. These findings are enhancing our understanding of the Moon's surface, temperature changes, and seismic activity, paving the way for future lunar exploration and discoveries. China's space ambitions are equally rapidly advancing, as the nation recently launched its Shenzhou-18 spacecraft, carrying a 3-member crew to its orbiting space station, Tiangong. The mission, which took off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China in April 2024, marks a significant step in China's space exploration journey, particularly with its aim to land astronauts on the Moon by 2030. The Shenzhou-18 mission began with a dramatic liftoff atop a Long March 2F rocket, witnessed by a vibrant send-off ceremony featuring flag-waving children and patriotic music. The spacecraft's crew consists of Commander Ye Guangfu, a seasoned astronaut who participated in the Shenzhou-13 mission, and spaceflight newcomers, fighter pilots Li Kong and Li Guangsu. The trio is set to replace the Shenzhou-17 team, who have been manning the Tiangong space station since October 2023. Expected to arrive at the space station roughly 6.5 hours after launch, the Shenzhou-18 crew will embark on a 6-month mission packed with scientific research, installation of space debris protection equipment, and payload experiments. According to Lin Xiqiang, deputy director of the China Manned Space Agency, the astronauts will also engage in popularizing science education, furthering China's commitment to advancing space knowledge. China's progress is notable given its exclusion from the International Space Station due to geopolitical tensions, particularly concerns over military involvement. This exclusion prompted China to build its own space station, which now hosts a variety of missions, including cargo and manned flights. Plans include 2 cargo missions and 2 manned missions within the year. Looking ahead, China's ambitious space program features a Mars sample return mission slated for around 2030, alongside 3 lunar probe missions in the coming years. Notably, China aims to place astronauts on the moon by 2030, a significant leap following its landmark achievements in space, such as bringing lunar samples back and landing a rover on the moon's far side. While the U.S. maintains a leading position in space exploration, bolstered by its robust budget and private sector collaborations with companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, China's advancements are impressive. The U.S. plans to return astronauts to the lunar surface by the end of 2025 as part of its renewed commitment to space exploration. India and China's growing space capabilities highlight an exciting new era in space exploration, showcasing its potential to play significant roles in the future of lunar missions and beyond. NASA's Artemis program. NASA's Artemis program represents a new era in lunar exploration, aiming not only to return humans to the moon, but also to lay the groundwork for future missions to Mars. The program's ambitious goals are framed around creating a sustainable human presence on and around the moon while preparing for more complex interplanetary missions. At the heart of Artemis is the Orion spacecraft, meticulously designed to support astronauts on their journey. Orion is constructed in 3 key segments: the crew module, where up to 4 astronauts will live and work; the service module, which houses life support systems and engine components; and the launch abort system, which is equipped with powerful engines to ensure the crew's safety during launch emergencies. To propel Orion and its payloads into space, NASA is developing the Space Launch System, SLS, the most powerful rocket ever built. Comprising a core stage, an exploration upper stage, and 2 solid rocket boosters, the SLS surpasses the legendary Saturn V rockets of the Apollo era. The fully fueled rocket weighs over 6 million pounds, with 5.2 million pounds attributed to fuel alone. Once ignited, its RS-25 engines and boosters generate immense thrust, propelling the spacecraft into orbit. After 2 minutes, the boosters detach, and 8 minutes into the flight, the core stage separates. The exploration upper stage then fires briefly to place Orion into an Earth parking orbit, where the crew checks systems before proceeding. Upon receiving the go-ahead from Mission Control, the crew reignites the exploration upper stage engines, propelling Orion out of Earth's orbit and toward the moon. This maneuver, precisely timed, ensures Orion reaches the moon after several days of travel. Unlike Apollo missions, which required Orion to serve as an expendable lunar module, Artemis uses a pre-staging strategy. Commercial and international partners will deploy essential equipment, including rovers, science experiments, and a lunar station called Gateway, which orbits the moon. Gateway facilitates the pre-staging of lunar landers and establishes a communication relay, enabling multiple lunar missions and ongoing scientific research. As Orion approaches Gateway, it must match the station's orbit to dock successfully. Crew members transfer to the lunar lander, which performs 3 critical functions: descending from Gateway's halo orbit to lunar orbit, landing on the moon, and returning to Gateway. After completing the lunar mission, Orion undocks from Gateway and begins the journey back to Earth. Re-entering the atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour, Orion's heat shield protects it from extreme temperatures. Parachutes deploy to slow the spacecraft to a safe splashdown speed of 20 miles per hour. Each Artemis mission advances humanity's presence in space, proving our readiness to explore further into the cosmos. What do you think about Buzz Aldrin's revelations? Let us know your opinion in the comments below.